Kevin, first and foremost, thank you for your service. 2 tours in Iraq, getting blown up by an IED. Thank God you're alive. And then you go back in the National Guard and fight fires. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. What you do for your country, my motto is you're put on this earth to serve. And I feel I serve, and I'm continuing to serve, through our technology as well. So no, I appreciate that, Grayson.
And this country owes you a debt of gratitude. It takes balls, it takes courage to go into theater, to go in those hostile environments. So America owes you a debt of gratitude. Thank you very, very much. On the technology side, you're building something really, really cool. You're building an autonomous train/truck. You did this great interview with my buddy Dooner on What the Truck and the Transformer. I'm not a Transformer guy, but I just think it's cool. What was the inspiration? Were you watching Transformers one day and said, I think I could build one?
Yes, yeah. Well, that was a piece of it. So I know you touched a little bit about my military career. The first time I saw a transload operation was in the Army. So in the Army, we do railhead operations where you drive your tanks and your Bradleys and your Humvees and everything else down to the rail yard, and you put them on the train. And then when you get over to the other side, you take them off the train. So that process sucks, for lack of better words. And I just thought to myself, how can I make that better, right? Later on in my life, I'm going to make it better. So this is now is the time for me to make a better application for dual use purposes, commercial purposes, and, for folks that are afraid to transload.
You would think about transloads. To me, first thing that goes in my head is weight. Tanks are heavy. Military equipment's heavy. When you started designing Glide, did you have to take into account for potential weight issues?
I did. I've been doing a lot of structural design throughout my entire career, from SpaceX, crate and shipping apparatus for the rocket. It's not a really, really heavy, vehicle, but it's cumbersome. And then, within the Air Force, supported with ground support equipment design, where the military over designs everything that's very, very heavy. And then working on logistics throughout my career, supporting heavy lifting. So I knew I needed to build something that was kind of over designed. You always want to build in the safety factors to make sure you build a robust vehicle. So that's exactly what we did when we designed Glide.
Did you have to use different types of materials to account for that weight that historically can take more weight, that can bend, or just better absorb that weight because you are going to be going on the road and you're also going to be going on rail?
Yeah, attenuation of loads is critical, especially in materials. The great thing is we're in this day and age, we have additive manufacturing. There's advancements in composites that really support in lightening up the vehicle while supporting, sprung and unsprung weight that's magnified. So that's what we put into our principles. So we have a combination of historical steel parts on our vehicle. We have aluminum parts, and we have composite parts as well. With our bogie system, we're looking at some composite frames to really lighten it up. There's companies out in Europe and in Asia that are working on composite frame bogies that we've been looking at quite a bit on replicating that technology to make sure that we're offering the lightest, the fastest, the most durable, and the easiest to maintain from a cost and a utilization perspective for our entire vehicle.
Maintenance is an issue. If you look at an individual that's going to maintain the vehicle or maintain the Glide, do they have to go get a certain type of training? Is it already skills that they have, or how are you going to approach the maintenance aspect of what you're building?
That's a great question. Gliders, we're actually a glider as a service. So our thing is to not sell our gliders. We were going to service our gliders ourselves. When we launched gliders at different ports or different rail locations, we're looking to stand up service centers. And within those service centers, we'll stand up training for local folks so that they can service and maintain our gliders. A part of our business model is to support marginalized communities that live adjacent to ports and rail yards. And our thesis is to hire folks within those communities, provide them with jobs that aren't typically accessible to them, jobs like engineers and technicians and mechanics, or a combination of all three, in order to service our gliders, not only from a mechanical standpoint, but also look at some of the autonomous and electrical systems as well, so they can be very, very robust individuals.
You're creating jobs, but more importantly, you're giving inspiration and hope. That's the game changer there. A young child living near the port or living near that environment can see the glider one day. A light bulb could go off in their head. They can go on to change the world because you gave them the opportunity. Why is it so important for you to give these children this opportunity to build the future and be a part of the future?
It's important to me because I was one of those kids. My younger life was split between Panama, the country, Panama Canal was my home. My dad's from Coron, and then my family lived in San Miguelito. and then watching the Panama Canal and watching the old Panama Railway back in the early 80s and early 90s and how broken it was, and then moving to Jacksonville and seeing CSX and how they operate were real inspirations to me, looking at the communities that surround them. And, for lack of better words, living in squalor just because of, where they live was always a big push for me. And then now going into analytics, identifying how many people in the world are impacted, the same way I was as a child is really my driver. Just to give you some math, there's about 120 million people throughout the world that are impacted by port and rail pollution, inefficiencies at both ports and rails, that their property values go down, they don't have access to jobs, and then their health is horrible. And who's going to save them? They're the little guys. So with Glīd, we're able to not only inspire, but employ and create solutions that improve their quality of life. Our thesis is when gliders are in place and we're running efficiently, these folks can take the equity out of their homes because they're going to be up in value because the ports are going to be making some money now, and put that back into the community and make these nice communities for everybody to live in.
We're going to dive into the economics of this because this is my take and I believe I'm right, and hell, I know I'm right. If you hire a child, there's still a child in high school, and they do not have to take on this obscene amount of college debt that's required to go to college today, let's say $400,000, $500,000, you change their life. Let's say they work for you for $60,000, $70,000. Okay, not the highest job in the world, but guess what? You're not straddled with a noose around your neck that's going to strangle you from growing. You're giving them the economic mobility. That's impactful because there has to be a way in the society to build a great career without going to college, without going in debt, and you're offering that solution. Will you go follow the European model of apprenticeships and start to train some of these younger students without having to go into the unfortunate realms of student debt?
Yeah, that's our thought process behind it. Our business models, we charge $25,000 per month and then 50 cents per 10 mile. A part of that cost per glider for as a part of our service is to pay for that individual to be there. And we don't require that individual, as you stated, to have a formal education or formal training because we're going to provide them with that. That's all we want is a large heart and commitment, and we'll do the rest. Meet us in the middle, and we'll take you the rest of the way.
It goes a long way. A big heart. If you look at your peers in Autonomy, Waymo is hiring individuals without college degrees. Waymo's having a positive impact. Glīd's having a positive impact. What markets are you going to target? You're going to target the ports, but what aspect of that? You're going to do intermodal, first mile, last mile. What aspects of the market are you going to target for Glīd?
We want to target the intermodal. Think of it this way. Glīd, for example, is a material conveyance monster, for lack of better words. So picture a boat pulling up to a port, and then the crane drops directly onto a glider. You no longer have to stack the containers up high with a forklift or do transload onto a train that'll wait there, and then that train goes on to the next spot to deliver onto a truck. No, we bypass every single one of those material handling steps, freeing up forklift drivers, your crane operators at your transload location, essentially streamlining your entire process, taking all the carbon out of each one of those machines that you're removing, in addition to the actual vehicle that's delivering those products to the middle mile. So port drayage, transload operations, and then supporting our middle mile folks as that first baton racer delivering to the next person.
You're having the positive economic impact on the community, and you're solving a labor issue. There is a global labor shortage for forklift drivers. It's actually pretty astronomical. Largest market for shortage is Japan, followed by Europe, followed by the United States. But there's a global shortage that's driving. That's why you're seeing automation go there. Your system is neat. It's rail and it's road. How does the system work?
Yeah, so the system is powered by AI, and I know that's a catchy buzzword these days, but essentially I'm going to break that down. We utilize sensor fusion, which is a combination of LiDAR, radar sensors, and many different sensors, proximity sensors, and then scanners. We have the ability to inspect our substrate as we go down the road and track, so we can essentially do geospatial mapping as we traverse our terrain. That powers our gliders and that guides us. We are also supported by our proprietary operating system called Ezra 1.6. That's a Bible verse if anybody wants to look that up. And Ezra 1.6 optimizes our software, optimizes our routes. It's human-centric to make sure that we're looking for accident and collision avoidance. and we're plotting the best route, for our cargo as we go from road to rail.
A hypothetical situation. I have a dear friend, Chuck Price. I know you're going to listen. You're going to watch. You can call Kevin, ask the questions. I'll set it up for you, Chuck, because you can go down Perception Row with Kevin. But from my aspect of this, what happens if there's a debris on the railroad track, let's say a log or a piece of lumber or something where the vehicle can't go? Does it transform and get off there, or what happens in that scenario?
Come on, Grayson, I'm going to tell you, it's in our video. We're going to pull up to that bit of debris, say hello to it. We're going to stop. We're going to back up like traditional trains can't. And then we're going to go onto a private road and go around that bit of debris and then get onto a rail crossing and get back onto the rails. And the reason why we're able to do that, people say, man, private roads aren't always paved. They're not always in great conditions. Well, the gliders are essentially an all-terrain type vehicle. And, I don't mean it's going to rock climb. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But we can take bumps, we can take rocks, we can take, uneven surfaces in order to deliver and go back onto our path.
Was the all-terrain inspiration, did that come from what you unfortunately experienced in Iraq?
It is. Prepare and plan for the worst. In addition, I designed Glide to be essentially a dual-use type of vehicle. When folks think about decarbonization, they're like, oh man, war and the defense guys are so bad. But if you think about war, I mean, not everybody needs to pay the price for war. You're already in a combat situation. Why not have a green type of war if you're going to have a war that is not polluting the environment? So when we created Glide, we thought about it, put in gliders in theater and how it can support, our troops there. And then on the commercial side, have those same capabilities delivered to our customers. Now, customers have a mil spec type product that is robust, is sustainable, that is reliable, that can deliver goods effectively.
In theater, I used this line the other time on a podcast, but I like it. In theater, you have a bad guy that's going to pull a John Wayne and go bang, bang, bang. And so you have that aspect. But then when you're in civilian life, you have rocks, you have debris, you have these sensors that are exposed. Do you have to build battle-hardened cases that can take the debris, or if you're in theater, can take the shots from the bad guy to ensure that your system can continue to operate?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You're an avid truck and train follower. It's like being in theater. You go by some neighborhoods, you're going to get pop shots. And so sometimes rocks come up like pop shots as well, and other debris that you have no control over. Again, going back to that, always plan for the worst. Equip your vehicles so it can take the worst conditions at all times. Because the United States and the rest of the world, the logistics route is not paved beautifully. It's probably the worst terrain in the United States.
And then you have a lot of individuals, I'm not saying I was one of them, I'm just saying a fact, that throw rocks at trains. They do it all the time. They throw rocks at trains. They could knock out a sensor. You mentioned private roads earlier. What type of length are you looking to run? You said first mile, so you're going to run 30 miles, 10 miles, 5 miles. You're going to run on private property. What type of range and environment are you going to run your system?
Everything within the first mile, as you stated, the 33 miles and below is our sweet spot. We're thinking within industrial parks that are very large, we'll go, a little longer than that. And how do we counter that with our range? We're actually looking at 3 different types of propulsion systems for our gliders. Our first customer is Taylor Transport. They don't have a hydrogen fuel pump on their property. We're developing hydrogen-powered powertrain alongside hydroplane. We're doing hydrogen-powered airplanes for the Air Force right now. They don't have a hydrogen pump. They don't have a battery recharging. They don't have chargers on site, but they do have a B20 pump on their site. So what we're doing is our first gliders are going to be hybrid, utilizing biodiesel fuels with a small battery set on it. We're going to use a linear piston-driven, essentially a range extender for the biodiesel portion of it, and then have the batteries recharge via that and regenerative braking as well to support that contingency.
What are your thoughts generally on hydrogen? I look at hydrogen, especially for commercial applications and for rail, you're eliminating the weight issue. Obviously, you have the infrastructure issue, but you're eliminating that weight issue. What are your thoughts on hydrogen?
Yeah, I'm a fan of all of them, right? I like hydrogen quite a bit, especially when you're next to ports. It's only natural. You're next to a big, huge body of water. The reformation process is a lot easier when access to water is great. So a lot of ports are adopting hydrogen. Our hydrogen play is designed specifically for ports. And then, again, for industrial parks, like we have an MOU with Great Plains Industrial Park out in Kansas. Kansas Proving Grounds, the old military base. And they are a hydrogen loving place. Honda's on base there as well, and they're delivering their hydrogen solutions. We feel for the application, you need to have the correct propulsion type in place. So that's why we're going to hydrogen. So yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of batteries. I'm a fan of nuclear, energy as well. But I don't think I'll see a nuclear glider anytime soon. But eventually, yes.
You said it right. You're not boxing yourself into one corner for one form of energy. I believe the future of energy is hybrid. And when I say hybrid, it's nuclear, it's hydrogen, it's diesel, it's oil, it's battery, it's everything to go, because there's this global shift towards generative AI. Well, generative AI is causing energy crunch. We're seeing that happen in Texas. It's causing a water shortage. We're seeing that happen. So we have to be able to use all forms of energy to achieve what we're building today. When a customer comes to you and says, okay, Kevin, I want to deploy a Glīd, what infrastructure is needed? Do they have to go through this massive build out, or what infrastructure is needed to start operating?
The infrastructure that they need to provide to us is basically just what they do today. There's no new railroads or roads or anything that needs to be put in place for us to deploy. We want to go in and augment operations. I'm going to bring up Taylor Transport again. They run an aggregate business up in Vancouver. Their big customers are Knife River, Waste Connections, the refuge company, and then Olnins, Illinois. They process glass for those guys, and they have rail on site. So we're going into the operation, augmenting what they have. No new rail, no new roads. That's all they need is us, and a conversation. How are your operations currently running today, and what are your pain points, and how can we fix them? Can I spend a week with you to understand what your operations are? I'm a logistician myself. Let's see how we can make this better. So I team up with their operations team. We go in, we assess what their operation is, we evaluate, our findings, and then we, put in concept how we're going to deploy. And that's all that's needed in regards to infrastructure.
Are there limitations on the weight or trailer size that can connect to a glider?
That's a yes and no. For some trailers, we'll have to build custom adapters that can go on to our attachment points. So the gliders have a deck on top of it that has a flat deck at first, and then you can transition from a kingpin or to one of our adapters that can, hook up to a belly dump or a side dump or a container, or pull directly underneath a 53-foot trailer in whatever configuration it is. As long as we can get underneath the front, we have an adapter for the rear, and we really don't have any limitations there. On the rail side, we can take a rail cart and then replace your traditional bogies, and then place gliders in place of your bogies and transport your rail carts, directly onto the rails as well, for customers that just want to stay on the rails but want, the autonomous type technologies that come with our gliders.
Will your gliders, similar to parallel systems, platoon, or will they operate independently?
They can platoon. The way that we're positioning them right now is they're independent. I think all vehicles, for the most part, even with parallel, I think they are independently operated, but they platoon together just for the efficiencies of aerodynamics and braking and the economies of scale and everything else that goes along with that. But yes, we can platoon.
Well, that's great. And perhaps parallel becomes a partner. If you're going to handle first mile, you can let Matt and the team handle the longer routes. You're both playing in the same sandbox. There's that place in Colorado, I know, that he tests the system all the time. Perhaps next thing you know, I see in a month or two, you're out there testing your system.
Yes, with Jason. Jason's my dude at NREL. I love those guys.
Yes. Yeah, they're great. They're building the future of rail, and they're allowing you to test rail. You can push it to the limit there. What type of cargo do you envision being carried on your system?
Yeah, in the beginning, the cargo that we're looking for is containerized cargo. We want to go with the simplest type of cargo for our first deployments. So I know in our videos we have the awesome design of the trailer, but as you build up your model and your prototype, you want to go to the smallest common denominator in order to prove your system out. And we feel, a TEU is the easiest thing to transport. It comes in the same form factor every single time, and you can put all kinds of stuff inside of it. We want to transport TEUs on a single glider. So elongating the glider, putting making it long enough for either a 40 or 20 foot container, and then deploy that way. So with our gliders, given that we can deploy so quickly, now you're looking at refrigerated cargo that doesn't have to be refrigerated, right? So agriculture can utilize us in that configuration without being refrigerated. You're looking at oil and gas or anything that is perishable, and you're delivering goods within a short proximity, but at a more expedient time, because you now do not have to transload. You do not have to go to an intermodal process. You drop your goods on the vehicle, and it's delivered on the vehicle for those type of scenarios.
How does the vehicle transition from the rail to the road? What goes into that process? Do all four wheels move? Does the transformer-like device come down on the side? If you see a crane and it pushes it up and lifts it, what does it look like?
Oh man, I can't tell you. No, I'm joking. No, no, no. So transitioning from road to rail. So for road to rail, what we do is the pneumatic wheels or road-based wheels will pull up to your common rail entrance. And once we're in position, our sensors will locate the datum for the track. Once those we get positive confirmation that we're located, then the metallic wheels, the rail wheels, will come down, contact the track on the rail, and then our pneumatic wheels will lift up into the body, and then the suspension for the bogie will be pushed all the way down, and then we're ready for the rail. One thing is we actually keep our pneumatic wheels slightly off the track. We want to say maybe 2 to 3 inches, and the reason why we do that is for derailment mitigation. So we have the ability to inspect the rail as we go down, and as we all know, not all rail is created the same or maintained the same. Say we come into an instance where we're going to come into a derailment point, we have the ability to drop the tires on top of the rail and kind of slow down and rebalance ourselves with our pneumatic wheels in order to prevent ourselves from derailing. And then with that information, we send that information off to the rail provider and say, hey man, your track is going to cause more trains to derail. You got to fix it. So now we're jumping into the preventative maintenance category as well.
Does that become a revenue stream for Glide?
You got it.
Selling that data?
You got it. Even on the roads. I mean, think about us driving down the road. There's potholes and the curvature is off, and maybe the aggregate or something's coming apart on the road. We're able to geospatial map that, send that information off to the DOT or who runs. That owns that private road, and we can charge them for it.
It's my favorite thing, licensing, but it's not licensing. You're selling data, but it's a very similar model there. When do you envision this being on consistent patterns? If let's say you're going from Macon, Georgia to Savannah, for example, do you envision these just being on consistent routes that are predictable, or do you imagine deploying these on unpredictable routes?
The dream is consistent routes, especially with AI. We can always learn, but consistent routes, especially within a logistics environment, having a round robin, the day in, day out. Now you got to the point where you can make that route more efficient, and then you can jump over to another customer because you're so efficient. Now you have a dual use for one glider. So you've now made that glider a multiplier because of your efficiency within your process. Say you have one customer that doesn't run 24-hour operations. They only run from like 9 to 8 or something like that. And the other customer runs, a third shift. We can run, that next route because we have consistent routing. If you have sporadic routing, it's much harder because you're like, hey, when am I coming back to base? What obstacles are in the way? It's kind of similar to Gatic and how they're running their operation. They have the same route every single time, and they're able to make their business, profitable because of they run in the same route every single time. So we want to do the same thing.
How do your gliders know when the right time is to hop on the rails and hop off? Because most of the time the rail's not used, but there are times where there's traffic on the rails. So how do your gliders know, okay, it's traffic-free time. You're in Atlanta. Traffic's notorious. Not as bad as on the rail. How do your glides know when to hop on and hop off?
Yeah, we're constantly communicating with traffic management to, not only from a public service perspective, but also with the rail provider, whoever it may be, whether it be Class 1, Union Pacific, or Norfolk Southern, or CSX, or the Class 2 or Class 3 guys as well. We're communicating with them to make sure that we don't have any conflict. The great thing, if we did have conflict with those guys, while we're on the rail, we can jump off, get onto the private road, let the train go by, and jump back on. That's how we go about that.
How do the Class 1s view your technology? They view it as a competitor? They view it as a potential acquisition? How are they viewing it?
The only Class 1 that we've spoken to was Union Pacific. We've had a couple of conversations with them. Very, very, I would say, successful. They're interested, but they're holding back until we, prove our technology out, which, I definitely respect. Show me what you got. Don't tell me, Mr. Motto. And I respect that. So, once we cross that threshold, we'll definitely be back knocking on the door and looking to, support others as well. I mean, we want to democratize rail within the United States, starting with the first mile and then supporting our brethren and parallel systems to do the rest.
Are you getting any traction from the short rail operators?
We are. We have a partnership agreement with PVJR, Portland Vancouver Junction Railroad out in Portland, Vancouver. They actually signed a partnership agreement with us. We're going to be supporting them on some of their rail inspection operations. And then they're going to use this as a small pilot to support Taylor Transport, who is their direct partner.
What regulatory concerns do you have? Well, obviously, we're going into a presidential election. Policy is going to change, and this is not being political, but you see the reports that President Biden will probably drop out. So I'll give you a 99% chance you're going to have a new president, either a new Democrat or a new Republican. How concerned are you with the regulatory environment and a regulatory environment that could potentially change in the next 6 months?
That's a great question. I'm very concerned. And that's the reason why we've kind of pivoted our mentality over the last 3 months, just watching everything go down to industrial parks, to ports that don't have an interchange, so that we can, bypass some of the regulatory stuff. If you're dealing with private folks, they typically create their own rules. So we're able to test out our technology, prove that it's safe and efficient, and then we can demonstrate to the regulators that we are building a technology that works, that is safe, that is efficient, and is a revenue generator for their municipality. Once they see that, they're going to get FOMO. And they're going to say, hey, man, we can change some rules. It's the same thing that we had at SpaceX. I supported SpaceX and obtaining all their exceptions to transport the rocket. And at first, we got a lot of pushback. And then after we started launching, they're like, yeah, of course I want, a SpaceX rocket to roll through my state. Of course I'll give you an exception. Of course I'll give you police to do it. We see that same exact transition happen within the intermodal space as well.
Look at SpaceX now. Elon announced they're moving to Texas. If you look at the amount of jobs being created in Texas, you have Starbase, then you also have jobs in Austin. There's a lot of jobs being created. Space is an economic boom, very similar to what you're doing, kind of a very positive economic boom on the communities where you're going to choose to operate. Are you currently developing the technology, testing the technology? Where are you on that development cycle?
Yeah, so we spent the first 2 years onboarding great partners like BART Manufacturing, Hydroplane, Forterra, Solidion, to develop the technology in a digital form. They're currently working with their commercial off-the-shelf applications that are proven and robust, while we've developed the gliders in conjunction with BART Manufacturing, who is a SpaceX and Tesla manufacturer, to create our gliders. So right now, our stop point is fundraising. We're in the process of raising our pre-seed round. We've raised about $300,000 so far, in the process of closing that out. We have about 1.7 million that we're looking to raise now. And we're in conversations with ventures and venture firms and angel investors and friends and families and fools and anybody that can support us to get there. And then once we get that money in, we'll go ahead and start building our first pilot that is already essentially paid for. We have 2 binding POs that that are going to be paying for that glider to operate within their compounds. So that's where we are in regards to that.
You have to build. You're building. There's no other way to describe it. You're building. If you don't build, you're nothing. If you look at what Elon did with SpaceX, it's been well documented in Ashley Vance's book and other public documents. The testing off of Guam, it went through hell. Fail, 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 fail. Guess what? Common denominator. Didn't give up, didn't give up, didn't give up. But he built, and the same thing what Glīd's doing is build. How much did you learn about manufacturing from your time at SpaceX?
Oh, a lot. I mean, when I first got started at SpaceX, half of the factory was like a furniture storage place for somebody else, and another part was, SpaceX Manufacturing. We're launching. So we're shipping rockets and dragging capsules out of one door. So I saw the factory build up from an empty or half empty factory to what it is today, and then to go on to other companies and support them with their manufacturing and their launch operations, from Romeo Power, the battery manufacturer. I was a very, very early employee there as their vice president of industrialization, and then to XOS Trucks, supporting them with supply chain and operations. I helped them stand up their manufacturing in Tennessee and in Mexico as well, alongside Metalsa, and then going to Canoe and supporting them as a logistician and supporting with their EH&S, learning about more manufacturing there, and then finally landing at Harley-Davidson's offshoot Serial One and helping them deploy bikes all over the world with their manufacturing in Taiwan, and then distributing bikes in Europe and in Asia and throughout the United States and Canada and Mexico. Got my chops in on how to build product the right way, both from a scrappy perspective and a traditional perspective as well.
The Harley-Davidson team was very interesting. I actually did an interview with them at an investor conference, and I wish them well and did a lot of good stuff there Romeo Power, I got a tour early on. Here's the question. Why put the company next to a slaughterhouse? That was the weirdest location
Yes.
outside of downtown LA, next to a slaughterhouse.
Yes.
What the heck?
Oh my gosh, man! It all came down to money. You know, you're a startup. We were in we're in Sunset, right? When we first started, we were in a small little office right off of Lincoln. I think it was maybe 15 to 20 of us within that office. It was way too small. And then we went to Vernon. You know, the first day we got there, we're like, "What is that smell?" Hey, it was right next to a railroad track. We never used it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what decision went into it, to be honest. I take it was cost.
The Zooks team invited me to go tour Romeo when you were doing stuff with Zooks, and I got there and I said, "Are they hiding dead bodies in here? Is this a mafia hitman disposal unit? I saw the sled. Is this Zooks trying to whack me and take care of me? I didn't know what I went in there."
Yes. No, man, it was wild. It was wild. A lot of magic there, man. I always tell folks, Romeo Power, we assembled probably the best in the world in one building at one time. If you look at the founding team and employees that have come in and out of Romeo Power, to include our CTO, Tony Petroberg, he's on with Glīd. It was just absolutely remarkable. Those are the magic days.
And the other fun thing about that was every conference room was named after a critical material, as you know. And so I got the whole tour. But that's Romeo Power. That's in the past. God willing, Glīd's not going next to a slaughterhouse where I'm going to ask you the same thing. Am I going to get whacked when I go into your office?
We are not going into no slaughterhouse. No way. Or next to a slaughterhouse. No way. I don't even eat pork.
Yeah, that can go by the wayside. But back to Glīd. Kevin, what is the future of Glīd?
Yeah, the future of Glīd, just to touch base again, is to really democratize the first mile of transportation, be a positive beacon for folks that live adjacent to ports and rails, and to replicate that same model throughout the world. We're going to start here in the United States. There's nothing better than having Americanism, reindustrializing the way that we manufacture here, building everything here for our people, making our people better, but taking that same model eventually throughout the world and improving the lifestyle for others and making their economies better via transportation. My thing is the first mile, just like a baton runner, is the most crucial. It affects everything downstream. You know, it's where all your demurrage happens, where all your detention happens, and most of your accessorial. If we can put an end to a lot of that, you know, eggs won't be $10 for a dozen eggs. They'll be back to $3. And I feel the world to be a better place. I know that's a grand statement, but, you know, I think that's a piece of it.
We want the world to be a better place. We want it to be a great place. We want America to lead on innovation. Innovation is a new form of national security any way you cut it. Grocery store inflation, 25%. It's astronomical. People are suffering under this inflation that's sticky. It's not transitory. It's sticky. And new technologies such as Glīd and other innovative technologies can allow America to lead on innovation, to create jobs, and to usher in what I call the autonomy economy. Kevin, this has been insightful. We wish you nothing but well and success on your journey to build Glīd. As we look to wrap up today, what would you like our listeners and viewers to take away with them?
Take away, you know, be nice to your neighbor. That's the first thing. The other piece is always strive to be the best. You're going to meet pitfalls and obstacles in your path, but, you know, always push through them to innovate in whatever way you want to innovate. And I'm grateful for you, Grayson, you know, putting us here. I'm grateful for Susan to facilitate this as well. Let's keep rocking, brother.
Well, let's keep rocking. To paraphrase Mr. Rogers, won't you be my neighbor? Let's all be good neighbors. Let's all work together to usher in the future of autonomy. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Glīd. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thank you, Grayson. I appreciate you, brother.